G'day homebrewers, welcome to my beer shed. Today I'm going to show you how I store my grains, my all grain brewing, and talk about some of the options that I use and how I'm changing things up. So without any further ado, let's just get straight into it and have a look at what I'm currently doing. So as you can see in this side of my brewing shed, it's getting quite busy with containers and different things stored. We've got water containers, hot cubes, we've got fermenters there. And in these containers here, actually those two bottom containers, I've got bottles and specialty malts. And in these three containers here, I've just got bottles. Now those two containers there are brand new, and we're going to talk about those containers in a minute. Currently, I'm using this blue container I bought from Bunnings, which is supposed to be airtight, a sealed container. And I'm also using a 20-litre food bucket as well, which I also got from Bunnings. So I've been all grain brewing for about 2 years and 3 months now. And when I started out doing small batches and buying all my grains in kits. After a couple of months, I bought a Digiboil and started doing brew in bags, 23-litre batches. But I would still buy the grains as kits, so I just buy whatever kit I wanted to brew online or at the local brew shop and brew that. Then after a while, I started buying different malts. Now, firstly, I started buying specialty malts, and I would buy bags of pre-crushed pale malt from Country Brewer just up the road. Now, that worked okay for a while, but I'm not really a fan of grain that's been crushed probably several months back and then put into bags and sent to shops and sold, etc., etc. So what I started doing is I started ordering grain bills online from different homebrew stores, and I'd have them crush it then and there, but at least I knew it was only crushed when I bought it. And I was doing that for about a year before I started thinking about buying my grains more in bulk. Now, I didn't really have the room to store sacks, or at least I didn't think I did, and I didn't really want to have sacks mailed to me. It was quite expensive to get 25 kilo sacks of grains mailed. So I held off for a while, but then I started buying grain in bulk from a local homebrewing store who's also a brewery. And to store that malt I got from the local homebrew store / brewery, I bought one of these containers. I think that's a 25-litre container from Bunnings. These are airtight containers, and I think you're supposed to store water essentially in them, not really for foodstuffs, but they do the job perfectly well. And you can see I've actually got some ale malt in there, in that one. So that's my ale malt. I put that down there. And in this one, this is just a 20-litre food safe drum. And I'm going to have to put the GoPro down and open the lid. And these are food safe containers, and they have pretty tight lids on them, so they're fairly airtight, but I don't think they're 100%. And in this particular one, that is my pale malt, or my lager malt. And what I've been doing is I'm going down to the local homebrew store, he's not really a homebrew store, he sells homebrew stuff, but he's more of a brewery, and he makes fresh war kits. So I've been going to him and getting grain in bulk, and he puts 12.5 kilos of malt in one of these drums for me, and it's about $40 something. So it's not as cheap as buying a sack, but it's still cheaper than buying smaller bags. So, and these seal up quite easily. Push that seal on, and that's it. But recently, I decided not just to buy my pale malt and my lager malt, but I also decided to start buying Munich and Vienna based malt in bulk as well. And I got this from the same brewery down the road who makes the fresh war kits, and he's been stocking Gladfield malts at the moment. He does switch between them from time to time, but I've started buying these, and currently I'm just storing these as they are. And I'm simply just rolling the top up and sticky taping it down, which is probably not ideal in the long term, as I really need to keep that sealed so bugs don't get in it, and also to keep it safe from moisture as well. So I went to Bunnings and I found these. And I'll show you this. We'll bring that down there. So that's a 50 litre container, but I got these because they're IP67 rated. So they're supposed to be waterproof storage boxes. And I would assume that these are targeted towards people who probably who want to store things on a boat, for example, or just to store it in a place where it may leak, like in a garden shed, and you want to store items in there and make sure that nothing gets wet or damp. So I've got 2 of these now, and what I'm going to do is we're going to put the Munich in one and the Vienna malt in the other one, and we're going to see if we can fit them in. Now granted, both of these bags are open, so they're not full 25 kilo sacks of malt, but I do know the Munich, I start with the Munich. The Munich has just over 23 kilos in it, and the Vienna has between 22 and 23. So there's only been one brew where I used a lot of both, and then another brew where I used a small amount of Vienna. So there's still a good 23 kilos of grain in each sack. So we'll put the GoPro down and we'll fill up these bins and we'll see if we can fit that whole sack in the bin. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to. I mean, it looks, size-wise, it looks pretty close. And I got the 50 litre because I assume that 1 kilo of malt would probably take about 2 litres of volume. That's what I assume. So 1 litre of volume would be half a kilo of grain. So a 25 kilo sack should fit into 50 litres. But we're going to pour it in now and see if it fits. And then I'm going to see how it works in the long term and report back. Alrighty, let's do it. They're very tight lids too, so that is very helpful. And also, my brewing shed doesn't actually have sealable windows, and there's a huge gap under the door, so I get a lot of dust in here on things, so I need to keep things like this well protected. Right. All right, let's do the Vienna first. Probably a better idea if I don't do this on these buckets because that's heavy. But I want to have it up for the camera, so what I'm going to do is I'll grab a stool. I can put this sack on. There we go. Perfect. All right, let's get this in the container. Oh, it's close. It's close, people. It's close. But it fits. Beautiful. That fits beautifully. So I'll just smooth that out. I've washed my hands too, so it's all good. Oh, look, that fits perfectly. And we've got, the lid is actually a bit domed. So the lid's a bit domed, so you'd be able to fit, you'd easily be able to do a 25 kilo sack in there. You just have to be really careful towards the end of your pour that you didn't lose any over the sides. But that seal, that lid is on perfectly. Clip it up. All right, and these are stackable as well, so I can stack the one on top, although 25 kilos of weight pressing down on the one underneath, I'm not so sure that's a good idea, but we're going to do it anyway. So because I want to see if they're going to work, because I've only got a small shed, and I really need to make sure that I use the space in this shed as best as I can, because this used to be a cubby house, and once the kids stopped using this as a cubby house, I converted it into a brew shed. Why not? So I can keep all my stuff in here. I've got 2 fridges just over here, and on that wall just behind the camera I've got some storage units with my brew gear and all my hardware and bits and pieces that I use for brewing every day. And over this side you can see is all my storage area, all my containers, fermenters and grain and bottles, etc. All right, so let's lift this off and do the sack of Munich grain. Oh, 25 kilos of grain, that's heavy. And that is going to break that container, so I can't leave that there. This is the issue I'm going to face, because I have lots of different containers and they're not all the same type, so they're not all going to sit perfectly onto each other and be able to hold that weight without possibly shattering. I'll leave that there for a little bit. That should be fine for now, and we'll just get this other container filled with the Munich. Alrighty. Alrighty, let's do it. Alright, out she comes. Beautiful. Well, that shook it everywhere, made a mess. And that's my Munich malt. Beautiful. Lid on. Keep that dust out. Done. Alright, I'll put this one back on top. I think that's going to be strong enough, you know. I do think that can take 25 kilos of weight. You can actually, I don't know if you can see that. I'll bring the camera up a bit closer. But you can see it's the lid's raised up there, and that'll be a nice strong point. If the lid was completely flat, it would bow down, but having that shaped up like that would give that more rigidity and more strength. So there you have it, brewers. That's my new method for storing my base malts. I've got just two to start with. So the Vienna on the bottom, sorry, the Munich on the bottom, and the Vienna on top. I've got to make sure I mark those. I'll have to cut one of cut that bit of the bag out and stick it in there so I don't forget. But yeah, you taste it, you can know what the difference between Vienna and Munich is. Now, I'll see how these work over time, but these fit a 25 kilo sack perfectly, and they're stackable. The lids look sufficiently rigid enough to be able to stack on top of each other. Now, I don't know if I'd put another one on top again. I think 25 kilos on top of that bottom one is enough. What I really need is to put some storage shelves in here so I can actually stack these in individually, and then I can just stack them away and pull them out when I need to brew. So that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about today, just how I'm storing my grain. The only other thing I'll show you before I go is I'll just show you where I put my specialty grains. So all my crystals and brown malts and black malts and all that sort of stuff. So let's have a look at that quickly, and then we'll get out of here. So I'm currently storing all my specialty malts in this container here. Now this was, I believe, a 60 litre container from memory, and it's pretty flimsy. This is a really cheap one. I think this was about $7. It was really cheap, and you can't stack these on top of each other because they're just, these lids are so flimsy that any weight on top of this, and this lid's just going to shatter. So, but it's a big enough unit to hold pretty much all my specialty grains, and I've got a lot of specialty grains. Something about brewing, I don't know what it is, but you tend to buy a lot of special grains, a lot of hops. It's like a collectible hobby in some ways, but I've got a lot of malts in here, as you can see, and there's actually two down there. There's another one underneath again, black malt, crystal, chocolate, crystal, etc. on top. So this has probably got currently about 20 to 25 kilos just of specialty malts in it at the moment, and that is all my specialty malts. That's literally everything I've got apart from base malt to make my brews with. So that's how I'm storing that, but that'll probably change too. So depending on how these particular containers go, I'll probably buy more of these and put my pale malt, my lager malt in them as well, and eventually set up on this side of the brew shed, a shelving system so I can stack them up and keep everything nice and neat and clean. So yeah. Okay, home brewers, I hope you got something out of that, just seeing how I store my grains and how I deal with my base malts and my specialty malts, and the changes that I've made just recently with these new containers. I'll report back probably in a few months' time and see how these are going and let you know if I've had any issues, if they've broken at all. I'll leave you with the price. These are actually, I do believe, $30 each, but I'll actually put the price up on the screen so you can see what the price was at Bunnings in Australia. I'm sure they sell containers like this in other countries. They would probably definitely sell them in New Zealand, because I think they have Bunnings as well. But in the United States and Europe, you have your own hardware stores and Home Depot, or whatever it's called, and you'd have your own containers. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. Thanks for joining me as I showed you this in my brew shed, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.